Thank you for joining Rumsey on our ongoing Locked In series being hosted by the Rumsey Specialist. Today we're continuing with this educational series. My name's Sean Huber. I'm one of the Automation Systems Group's managers here at Rumsey. And today we're going to go to the automation side of our business with a presentation around the successful migration of single-axis servos. So with that, I'd like to introduce Eric Strimmel. Eric has been with Rumsey for just about 5 years. Besides handling motion, Eric gets into some of the more unique applications with barcode scanners and printers and some vision stuff that we run into, but not to mention the mechanical components that go right along with motion, so any of the gearboxes and actuators and other associated pieces. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Eric, and you can talk a little bit more about your history and take it over.
All righty. Hello, everybody. My name is Eric Strimmel, like Sean said. I'm a motion control specialist. I've been in the area for over 20 years, fresh out of school, and I've worked with a handful of the distributors in the area with a competitive product. And now I'm on the Rockwell side of the fence with Rumsey for the last 5, going on 6 years. So moving on, I want to give you a quick agenda of what we're going to be covering today. These first 3 or 4 topics, what I want you to know, what you have, how long it's going to be available. I want you to know what's going end of life, and I want you to know what's currently available to fill those applications. We're also going to cover which drive makes sense for the application. We're going to compare some older drives and newer drives, feature sets, and I/O features. And we're also going to review the components and benefits and follow it up with some target applications and finish it up with the Q&A. First off, I'm going to show you the life cycle status traffic signal, if you will. It goes from green to red. And, the red is discontinued, no longer available or able to be procured. The yellow is what's going end of life, so it's giving you a little bit of a heads up. The active mature are the products that are still available and can be used to date, but yet there's a active product which may have better capabilities or features, and we're going to fall into that today, talking about the 5100. But talking about discontinued drives, if you've seen 1391, 1394, or 1398 Ultras or Ultra Pluses, some of these are still available and still working in the field, but just know that there is a migration path to newer series of drives and motors. About 3 years ago, we were given notice that the Ultra 3000 was going end of life. And we also know that beginning of next year, January 1st of 2021, it will be discontinued. So it'll be no longer available for sale globally. But just keep in mind, we have solutions already at the ready. If you have a Kinetix 300, Ultra 3000, there's already a selection guide ready to size and help you select those drives for the features you require. Also, keep in mind there's also a K5300 on the horizon coming out this fall. That will be a SIP motion drive, more integrated, very similar to the K350 or the Kinetix 5500, same feature set. So moving along to migration of standalone applications. Previously, you had choices of the Kinetix 300 and 200 volt, the 6000 and 400 volt. And again, with the Ultra going away, and those being active mature, we're going to migrate to those active products. And that's going to be the 5100 for 200 and 400 volt. And for the advanced safety that the 6000 and 6200, 6500 brought to the table, I would recommend the 5700 as the go-to for that.
Yeah, and Eric, the only comments I guess I would just make, around that is that, as of right now, the Kinetix 6000 has been a workhorse for a long time. But putting in new applications and Circos is not really the direction that that Rockwell's taken motion control. Everything's been moving over to SIP motion. So if you were to come to us with a new application, between the motors and all of the other things and the mechanical that are attributes of upgrading, we would definitely point you towards the newer families as opposed to them. Even though they're still here, we still stock Kinetix 6000 parts and drives and stuff as Rumsey. It's not something we would typically do as a new application at this point.
Correct. And in the future, in the next 3 to 5 years, I suspect that anything with a serial port or a SERVO port will be on the chopping block. So I suspect that, moving to these newer 5000 products is the way to go. The same thing goes with SIP motion. If we had a Kinetix 2000 or 6000 running SERVO, or even an Ultra 3000 running SERVO, the migration path would push you to a 5500 using Ethernet. Even a 400 volt can get you up to a 5700. And again, if there's advanced safety features, the 5700 is the go-to. And in the future, I believe we also have the 5300 coming in, which again is the SIP-only drive. On to the components of a motion control system. The motion controller typically is our PLC that talks to our drives. The 5100 is a little bit of a hybrid where it has a motion controller and the drive all on board. Depending on what mode you use it in, dictates how it acts. If you want it to be just a standalone drive, it's going to act like a standalone Ultra 3000 indexer, versus if you put it in I/O mode, with the AOI, it'll act more like a SIP-like drive using the AOI. So here's a good representation of where the 5100 falls into the scheme of our controllers. Using the 5100, you can use it like an indexer, or use the AOI and talk over Ethernet IP to a compact LOGIX, or a micro 850 or a microcontroller. If you need more than that, again, migration path will push you to the 5500 using a compact LOGIX. And if you need advanced safety features and anything higher than that, again, the 5700 with an L8 controller will give you all those safety features that you require. So moving on to a question I hear an awful lot is, what motor series do I use? And what's often a misconception is that not all our motors work with every drive that we offer. So the 5100 was made solely for the TLP, the TL series, and it works with the MPL. When it comes to, it has 8 frame sizes, running from 46 millimeter up to 235, up to 15 kilowatt. And I believe there's 6 frame sizes in the 400 volt coming later in the year. The 5500 only works with the MP and the VPL series, and the 5700 works with any MPL or VPL series, so up to the VPCs, down to these small MPLs. So just keep aware. So why would you consider a TLP for a TLY migration? Well, these motors are drop-in for the TLY with all the different frame sizes that we have. They have similar feedback with single and multi-turn capability. Again, with those frame sizes from 46 to 235 millimeter, they're truly a drop-in for those TL/TLY migrations. Also keep in mind that there's a NEMA 17, 23, and 34 adapter plate option coming in. That's next phase. That's probably going to be this fall. And there's a new push for the halogen-free cabling. So these are PUR and PVC options up to 50 meters, and they come in flex and non-flex options. And for all documentation on these, you can hit that link below. So one misconception too is when you work backwards from the motor, you're determining what drive is mated with that. Rockwell has already gone through and made selection guides for us. So if you know what motor you're wanting to use, you can see right here on the right-hand side that it already has the mated matching drives that accompany it. There may be 1 or 2 selections for a motor, say like here, that varies, that increases the peak stall torque a bit. So you have options and some flexibility there. So what makes sense for your machinery? Do you really want a standalone drive that you utilize I/O, something you need to configure with another software? Do you want something that's more integrated? Do you like the bus bar multi-axis capability of the 5500, the same as the 5700 with the bus bars for higher axis machines? But if you have anything else that requires more feature set than the 5100, that's where the 5300 comes into play, because that's going to be more of that K350 single axis SIP, more SIP than the 5100 in integrated motion. So here's an example of a system layout showing a device level ring for two 5500s and some PowerFlex drives. This very well could be 5100s or 5300s in this same topology. And I also wanted to show you on the right, this is what the bus bar like system looks like for 5500, showing a shunt module and a capacitor module on the end. And this is 8-axis, 6-axis of VPL servo and 2 induction motors. So what makes sense for your application? Do you want to deal with analog signals, pulse width modulation, or pulse train outputs? Perhaps you do. Perhaps you are using a microcontroller and want to keep costs down. Or would you not prefer to use SIP motion or need to interface to a third party? Do you want to use interface Ethernet IP communications and use the integrated motion command set, or simply just message and status of some variables and tags? And let's see what makes sense. So if you're using PTO, analog, or indexing, you first need to configure the drive, and that happens with the 5100 configuration software over USB. And then once you set the mode and IP address and the feature set, or the I/O features you require, then you should be able to command some indexes from a microcontroller, the pulse train, or possibly retransmitting this output pulse train to a following drive. You can control it via explicit messaging, and this is solely over Ethernet. And using CCW, you have that capability with MicroLogix. Using the motion add-on instruction is a little bit more involved. Using the add-on instruction, you get access to the instruction set of the MSO, MSF, jogs, indexing motions, but there's a little bit more setup involved with this 5100. You see here on the right, you need to write in some synchronous copy commands to get the AOI working. It's basically an input and output assembly instance that needs to be added, and then you would get this device name, which is the AOI. The first thing I would start from here is that I would need to download the AOI from the DC-DC, and that is available right here.
So Eric, if we just take a quick step there, like, a couple of slides ago when you were showing the pulse train and things, that's a lot of how the Ultra 3000s were used over history.
Correct.
So, if you're replacing an Ultra 3000 or migrating from one of them, a lot of times this would be a more equivalent case to where the 5100 would happen, or even if you have a K300, a lot of times that's where this was used. As you go up in these to Ethernet, the Ultra 3000 had a device net option. Obviously, there's not much coming out anymore in the device net realm. So, this would be the Ethernet version of replacing any of the device net Ultra 3000s, moving into this realm. However, with Rockwell coming out with the AOI, and being able to load that into the controller, it's an awful lot easier way to implement that with our controllers than say what the device net would have been back in the day. So just kind of a real world, here's the things where you would go from and to. And I don't know, Eric, if you're going to mention it, but just these AOIs are not synonymous with SIP motion.
is not true integrated motion. The
Yeah,
drive is not added to the motion group as it would have been if it was true integrated motion.
Exactly. So yeah, just to be clear on that one too. So just kind of where this product fits in the realm of things. So.
All right. But again, using this AOI, you still get the command set, these commands available to you, just as if you were using integrated motion. With the addition of a few more that I haven't used quite often, this new one right here is called the Index, Launch and Index PR mode. To go into this mode where you would use these commands, typically would be IO mode, and I'm going to go over that here shortly. But there's also a PR mode, which is like a parameter read or a predefined register mode, where you can program in using parameters and the software that I'll show you briefly here shortly, how to configure the preset sequences, delays, and indexes that can be launched from this command solely. So you either do it from here, or you would manually perform a jog or an index using the MAM. So where you get started with the software, there's a special cable, it's a mini USB and a filter that gets you online with the Kinetix 5100C configuration software. And as you can see here, this is where you set the IP address, the mode, you put it on all nameplate data, your pulse train scaling. It has gearing, filtering, notch filters, your limits, your I/O. It even has onboard oscilloscope and trending available. Down here at the very bottom where that PR mode editor is, that's what I was talking about, where you would edit those sequences of events, and the cam editor and the capturing and compare, I guess that's the monitoring and trending. But moving forward, just wanted to show you that there's a bunch of modes here for you to choose from. The PR modes are the parameter read modes, and the IO mode is the mode that you would use to use the AOI. So we're going to compare the old to the new, and I know these are like eye charts, so I apologize for the small print, but going from the Kinetix 300 to a 5100 or an Ultra 3000 to a Kinetix 5100, the 5100 on every spec has them beat except for IO count. So that's the only thing to be aware. The only thing that stuck out at me was right here was that the Kinetix 5100 having 8 inputs and 2 high-speed inputs for a total of 10, in my opinion, was still less than 12 here. So that was the only lacking component here in these specs. And looking at all these feature sets on the right, you have all that feature set available to you via I/O. And this is just a little anatomy of the 5100 drive, showing a small frame and a larger frame. The control input sometimes is on the front versus on the top. The STO is always on the top. You got dual port Ethernet and a mini USB for configuration. This long connector here is where the I/O breakout board is installed. And you have an auxiliary feedback for linear applications. And this is where your motor output, UVW, your motor feedback's on the bottom, and you have a grounding clamp, a grounding plate here. So moving forward onto that I/O connector, it's a 50-pin connector that allows you easy access for landing your digital I/O, pulse train signals, e-stop enable, or daisy chaining like emulated encoder outputs to the next 5100 axis. This is the clamshell for the feedback cable. This should look somewhat synonymous with something you've already used on a 6000 or an Ultra project. It just takes the TL series feedback cables and the MPL series feedback cables and allows you to land them and connectorize it so you can snap it right onto the face of the drive. This is the secondary feedback connector. It looks more like a FireWire or whatnot connector. This will be elaborated upon here probably within the next year. This is going to be an add-on for the linear motor and linear actuator support. That's going to be added mid 2021. And this feedback will be a TTL-based Nikon 24-bit. And again, used for dual loop feedback applications using our linear products. One thing to be aware of too is that on the if you use a TLP motor with multi-turn absolute feedback, there will be a battery on the cable, and this is what keeps the absolute feedback alive during power cycles of the drive. So just be aware of that will exist. And as an FYI down here, the 5100 during its launch was launched with an assortment of AC line filters and shunts. I need to know more about your application besides the shunts using Motion Analyzer. Just keep that in mind, but the AC line filters are also available if you need to comply to CE. I want to talk to you about footprint. The footprint of all these Kinetix 5100 drives are smaller and smaller in comparison to the Ultra 3000s. That's another reason why it makes it the best migration for Ultra 3000. It uses the MP series motors. The single phase and 200 volt are available currently. The 400 volt will be available later this year. And I don't know why they labeled this way, but it goes frame 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. I looked all over, and again, that's just the way they put it in the catalog. 1, 2, 3, 5, 7. So no 4. Want to do a comparison of the Ultra 3000 to the 5100, showing that in the continuous torque and peak torque specs, the 5100 surpasses the Ultra 3000 in every category. The only place that I saw some difficulty was that the Ultra 5100 was a little bit deeper in the single phase offering over here on the right hand side, and a little bit wider right here again in the single phase offering.
And I guess, Eric, I'll just add in a little bit there, just from the reference of the Ultra 3000s, because I'm mostly familiar with the older product. When Rockwell released the Kinetix 300 line, it was kind of a first step at replacement of the older Ultra 3000s, but it didn't have some of the functions and capabilities in standalone that Eric pointed out. So both that as well as not having some of the size capabilities, going up to 15 kilowatt. So the 200 volt versions of these and 115 volts are out now. The 400s are coming, but once this product is fully rounded out, I'm not aware of, or I guess I should say we're not aware of any direct correlations that the Kinetix 5100 couldn't do in place of the Ultra 3000. So it ends up being a pretty good upgrade path where maybe we might have helped you or looked at the Kinetix 300 in the past and it came up a little bit short. So, just from a general standpoint in the migration world, it looks like this product will be a real good fit. And then shortly hereafter, the 5300 will be released, and then that'll get us on kind of a more single axis sit motion profile. So should have a good family for migration between all of these.
Yep. And moving on, so I just want to talk about some target applications for this. Again, the 5100 was designed for a simple selection for crossing over to Ultra 3000 and older product applications, standalone or simple machine applications. It's best overall cost solution when used with a microcontroller. And we're going to focus on applications in packaging, life sciences, laminating, vertical form field machines, horizontal, as well as food and beverage and slicers, as well as paper and converting and case packers and things like that. Mainly setup axes is where we've been getting a lot of traction with this line. The axes on the machine that don't need a lot of dynamic response or just like a move to a position and hang out and or home on power up and go to a fixed position. I believe those are the applications where I want to focus on 5100 or 5300, by the way. So a single axis recap. We have the widest range of available systems. So anything from Kinetix 300 covering the Ultra 300 or Ultra 3000, we can drop in and displace them with a newer drive with better capability. It's cost efficient, like I said. It's going to be cost lower than I believe the K350 here in the future. Increased ability for control. You can use CCW or integrated architecture using Studio 5000. And that simple selection from the motor back to the drive, the selection guides have made it very, very easy for us to size and select this for you. So what can you expect in the near future? I'm thinking summertime or maybe early fall. But this is what the 5100 demo is going to look like. And it's shown here with 6 inputs, 4 outputs. It could be a standalone demo that you don't need a controller to show off. You could just use a laptop and a USB cable. Or if you put it into I/O mode, you could use the AOI for that SIP-like demonstration. And here's the migration information that I use to generate all this documentation for you. And there's more documentation, the user manual, and some migration guides. And you'll get all these links and documents in a packet along with the presentation in a day or two.
So yeah, so just everybody's listening. So like that demo that you were showing, we don't have one as of yet. So if you have, if you wanted to work with Eric to try and convert some of the stuff over, we don't have that thing just yet. But once we do, we would be able to work on some of your applications with you and kind of show you how it works. But in the meantime, the 200 volt series is out and available. And if you have applications where you're having a hard time getting a hold of 3000s, we obviously can do the same thing with Rockwell on a case-by-case basis, so just let Eric know.
Thank you. And again, here are all the guides from the TLT motors, the single axis, all the additional publications for all the accessories. And thank you. And if you have any questions, I'd love to field them.
So just as a general rule, or I guess what I've seen over time and where Eric and Mike, our other motion specialists, come in is over time, there's a lot of different products out there from a motion standpoint. Certain things work with certain things, and we kind of have a little bit of an internal somewhat joke of needing a secret decoder ring to figure out what things work with what. But that is where Eric comes in. So if you have applications, or if you're running into some issues with getting motors, especially from the older series, the things that he showed right in the beginning of this presentation with the 1394 and 1391s and the stuff that's really back there, early 90s type of servo applications, they can both, the motion specialists can help you kind of navigate through what is the right connectors and the right flex rated cables and all the things to go from the older product to the new. So this is a new product, a new design, something that I think will take the single axis capabilities well into the future for Rockwell. And I guess with that, I'll just open it up if there's any questions.
I'm seeing one question over the chat saying, does Kinetix 5100 drives offer integrated safety over Ethernet? That's a good question, and I'm going to have to say I'm going to be leaning toward. I know it has safe to work off, but I'm not sure about integrated safety. I would lean more towards the 5300 or 5500 or 5700 if you need integrated safety.
Mike, do you know that one off the top of your head or not?
The short answer, the 5100 is no. It's not. It doesn't do safety over the network. It's only hardwired safety.
Yep. Just the STO.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Well, with that, I appreciate everybody taking the time to attend. We will be sending out a follow-up email to this again with a copy of this as well as all the supporting documentation. We're going to continue these locked-in series through the end of this month, every Tuesday and Thursday. So feel free to go onto the Rumsey website and look at what other options, with plans on continuing these, probably for months thereafter. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. And with that, we will sign off. Thank you, everyone, for attending.